And I can tell you the matters are under investigation, and therefore I would, as always, be sober and reflective and careful about that which I can say. But suffice it to say that the police are now reviewing footage wherever that is available that might lead them to a better understanding of what was done and who did it. They are interviewing persons, and by virtue of the intelligence that is underpinning the police investigation, they are clear in their minds that the attack was motivated out of gang-related issues. And of course, they are actively pursuing the murder weapon or weapons as we speak. So insofar as the Gonzales horrific affair was concerned, those are some of the actions that are underway now by the police in that regard. Just want to touch on the question of multiple killings, and I want to bring to your attention, of members of the media, how serious this issue is. Let me share with you some statistics that I have in my possession in relation to these. We have had a number of double, triple, quadruple, and even a quintuple murder within recent times. For example, in 2024, I have in front of me here every single one of the 53, sorry, that's 2020, let me start with 2023, sorry about that. 2023, in terms of double murders, we have all of 153, meaning, sorry, 53 of them, meaning 106 persons would have been murdered in this country in 53 double homicide events. When someone shows up on a murder scene with a gun, if you had a 9mm, even if it was semi-automatic, by the time he discharges, one or two other persons have an opportunity to take cover or make themselves small or get off the scene. But when you come with an automatic weapon and you spray, it gives people, unfortunately, very limited opportunity to do that, hence the double. In 2024 now, we have had so far 13 double homicides. 13 of them. And the latest was at the 23rd of May. In terms of 2024, so far, unfortunately, we have had 2 triple homicides. One at Paradise Heights and the other one in Maraval. Insofar as quadruple murders are concerned year to date, we have had 3, including Land Street in Gonzales on Sunday evening, which brought me here today. And you will remember, on the 30th of October in 2023, we had a quadruple murder at the corner of Belmont Circular Road and Smart Place. Some of you would have covered that. So in the Belmont area, the Cocorit area, Park Place, and now Gonzales in my community, we've had a quadruple murder using these automatic weapons with high-grade military ammunition. And of course, in Park Place, not just quadruple, this was a quintuple murder, including a police sergeant who would have died in Park Place on the 16th of March 2024. So the situation is that horrible. The police have identified this event on Sunday evening as gang-related, and as I would have indicated to the national community before, the police statistics reveal that as far as 65% of the homicides that we have, whether single, double, triple, quadruple, or quintuple, we know from the police records that they are gang related. So gangs are a major part of this country's problem. And in respect of those, when I'm asked the question, as I was on Sunday evening, what are you doing about this? Well, all I can say is that, and to show you how complex this thing is and how crime is a very complex business and it can turn up everywhere, including inside of some of you and me, because we are mere mortals. As I speak to you, very unfortunately, we have an employee of the Ministry of National Security, a very young man, who I understand is a good worker. Sadly, I had to read the newspaper to see he was arrested and charged for robbery. He had a job with a good work reputation, right here in the Ministry of National Security. I read a few days ago as well, a police officer, a whole police officer, is alleged to have found himself in a jail in Venezuela. You've had members of the media who found themselves in similar circumstances. Politicians, former prime minister, members of parliament. That's the nature of the beast. But gangs are a major part of this. And gangs simply mean where two or more persons come together for some specific purposes, several crimes which are listed in the schedule to the anti-gang law. So I want to say that the government continues to make our education system available at no direct cost to the users, from early childhood, primary, secondary, and many of you. Thankfully, the majority of our young people in Trinidad and Tobago, with those and our technical vocational training opportunities in MIC, in UTT, and everywhere else, the Ministry of Youth Development, they reveal new programs. The last one I saw this week, they identified 50 young people across Trinidad and Tobago to go and do training in heavy equipment, cranes and big equipment, heavy duty operators. And I really admire that opportunity. So they are there, that's what we do. The Ministry of Youth Development is replete with programs. So when I heard it said by some young people in this country too, encouraged by some reckless and heartless adults who should know better, that there are no opportunities for young people in Trinidad and Tobago, that is absolutely untrue, rubbish. So we do that. But that's not all we do. We go to Parliament and we pass the laws that we believe you, the people, would want to see to tighten the reins on the criminals and to shut them down, because that's the objective. To obliterate the gangs, divert them to more positive pathways in life, and for those who are not going to avail themselves to that, put them in the jail where they will stay and be of no damage or threat, no threat to you, the people, the hard-working and honest and decent people of Trinidad and Tobago. That's what it's all about. But there's no light switch for that. There's a whole lot. There's many a slip, they say, between cup and lip. I'll tell you about some of them. For one thing, we don't always get the support we expect in the Parliament from our friends in the opposition. And I heard my friend Camille Robinson-Reggie say recently that there seems to be a symbiotic relationship between crime and criminality and some of the people who hold offices in this country in a position to make decisions to protect us. There are times when I feel it goes beyond symbiotic relationship, but more like Siamese. Sometimes I think they're joined at the hip. But one of the things we have done when we get past the Parliament, if we do, and I've said it publicly before, when we go into Parliament with legislation to protect you, the people, from criminals and criminality, we also have to consider how the opposition will behave. So when we draft in law, we draft it with the criminals and the opposition in mind before we know that they are going to just object to it. In fact, they have said so openly, and you have reported it, so this ain't no lie. But if we get past the Parliament, in terms of the criminal justice system, which consists of the police, the prison, the probation service, the public defenders, the courts, the office of the DPP, all of these units consist of the criminal justice system, and there is no doubt in our mind that that system is not operating as efficiently and as smoothly and as swiftly as it could and should. And the slowness of this system benefits the criminals, because the longer the matters stay pending, witnesses die, witnesses lose enthusiasm, they are now amenable to threats, and they don't want to give evidence again. Sometimes witnesses even die. They murder some, and some by natural causes. So the very criminal justice system is not allowed to run as smoothly as we would like for those and other reasons. So we as a government, we recognizing the importance of the courts in this, since we've been in this office, increased the number of Court of Appeal judges. We have increased the number of first instance judges in our courts. So today, in the criminal division, which we set up as well, we went to Parliament and passed law to set up a specific criminal division. Having so done, that gives the court the opportunity to create special courts, whether it's for sexual offenses, human trafficking, gun trafficking and gun crimes. They have their power to do that now under the criminal division, which we put in place in the Parliament, working along, of course, with the judiciary. And we, of course, oversaw the hiring of more judges. So the criminal court now has 15 judges and 4 masters. An improvement on what existed before. We emptied the Hall of Justice from all other elements of the judiciary, meaning the civil division that has gone down to the waterfront where we used to have our Parliament, and they are now down there carrying on the business of the state as an arm of the state. But by so doing, we made 71 rooms available exclusively for criminal jurisdiction in the Hall of Justice. More courts, more rooms for masters to operate, and all the processes in the criminal justice system is available across the road. Providing the resources, all in an attempt to quicken the pace of the criminal justice system, which I'm prepared to say we all have responsibility for, all 3 arms of the state, the executive, the Parliament, the judiciary, and the criminal justice system in particular. The aim is to quicken it. We remove thousands of marijuana cases under 30 grams. So the police got to go and spend time locking up nobody for a small joint or something. There's no sanction if you're under 30 grams. You're permitted to have it. Not to smoke it in public, but to have it. And if it's up to 60 grams, you can get a ticket. Over 60 grams, the normal regime they will lock you up and charge you in the court for the criminal offense of possession and whatever else. We did that. As for traffic offenses, there was a time when I practiced law, and as a police officer myself, a traffic case was put on the normal list along with all the other cases as a criminal matter. We removed thousands of them off of that, and we put it in the demerit point system, so that is dealt with administratively. And those 2 acts, the marijuana cases and the traffic cases, has lightened the load of the magistrates, giving them an opportunity to deal with more serious things going forward. And in that way, we hope that it will have contributed to quickening the criminal justice system. We now have electronic filing of documents, police filing cases electronically. They don't have to go to the court and lodge documents and files again. And now the High Court could send documents electronically to the DPP's office. The law now permits all of that. And there was a time in this country when original documents had to be produced in a court. Today, copies can be used, electronic copies too. Because there was a time in this country when a file go missing and serious charges went in abeyance because some corrupt hands removed the file with the original documents, and once they couldn't be filed, persons who were alleged to have committed serious crime walk free, never having to give an account in this country. Well, thankfully, we are a long way past that today. But our troubles are not over. You would think that they have only just started. Because we are now at a place where, because of the delays in the criminal justice system, the courts are now granting bail even for murder. That did not happen in my time. That happened within recent times, when a fellow by the name of King, aka Catty, made an application and a master granted him bail for the first time in this country for murder. And of course the DPP appealed it and won in the Court of Appeal, because the law was such that while the judge can have granted bail, and by the time the Akili Charles, he was the second person to have been granted bail for murder in this country. By the time his matter came up, and I read the judgment, the court explained it's the delay. But in the first one with King, and by the way, that King, who is now in custody because the DPP won an appeal, features in the context of what happened in Gonzales, and understanding that there might be some relation. But that is not altogether too relevant. Point is, the Court of Appeal overturned the decision because the master had granted bail for murder, and they found that only a judge could do that. And they also found that even if she had the authority to do it, the master, on the facts of the case, it was unwarranted bail, that is. But Akili Charles got bail. And of course, unfortunately, he was murdered. So when I am asked about the number of murders for the year, this year, last year, whatever year, 2 of them had to do with that Akili Charles, where he was charged for one of them, went to prison, stayed unduly long because of the delay, and then in his matter, the court found he should be put on bail. He was put on bail, and when he came out on Civil Street, he was murdered. So we end up with a real issue. That's how it works. And as for sentences, the police are complaining to me as minister, and to whoever else would listen, that they would take time and trouble to investigate matters. And I have examples of it. For example, in a matter, I wouldn't call the name of the defendant, the matter is probably still going on. A man was charged for the offense of robbery with violence. That means he must cut or threaten or intimidate somebody with a gun or a knife. Usually, the matter was heard on the 1st of March 2024. He went before a master of the court and he pleaded guilty to the charge. He was then sentenced to compensate the virtual complainant, the person he robbed, in the sum of $20,000. And he was given until the 27th of September 2024 to pay it back to the man as a sentence. You hear what I tell you? You must take 20,000 or something so from the man, and the court ordered that he give back the man the money by the 27th of September this year. Months of leeway to pay back the 20,000 for robbery with violence. Chances are with a gun. Chances are with a gun that was not recovered by the state. Still out there to do more. And in default, if he didn't pay it by the 27th of September, he will be sentenced to 4 months simple imprisonment. In prison, 4 months could mean less than that. So the police complain about the levels of sentencing. So I know that the Attorney General would have raised this with the judiciary, and I am comforted by the Attorney General that this and other similar matters are being looked at. And of course, we understand that it is entirely the domain of the courts to pass sentences, and they guard that very jealously, and they are entitled so to do. But we plead that the interests of the public be taken into greater account in these regards. I just want to share with you, members of the media, some quick statistics. In 2016, there were 464 murders. 75% of them involved the use of a firearm. In addition to that, in that year, there were 286 woundings and shootings. So that's when they shoot, but the person didn't die. Person wounded but didn't die. So every one of that 286 could have resulted in a murder too, you know. And if they did, you would have had to add 464 to 286 because it's done. Just it didn't hit the wrong spot. So you have the murders and you have the shootings. So firearms play a major role in the mayhem that we have to contend with. And this is why the government has laid down a mandate for the police to go on continue on a serious gun retrieval exercise. Mop them up, take them out, go use intelligence, get the public's help, and go and find these things and seize them and lock up people for them when you get them too, and cleanse the society of this scourge. And in 2021, by way of a not so recent statistic, we had 1,868 robberies, of which 1,594 or 85% was with the use of a firearm. So firearms are very central to all that is going on here now. And then one of the things we did as a government, we implemented or we put into effect, because the law was passed since 2012, the electronic monitoring system. And I saw you members of the media carrying a member of the opposition, Dr. Rudal Munilalo Coaches, very loudly recently claiming that the electronic monitoring system had collapsed, which of course is far from the truth. As we speak today, courts are sending more and more people. More instruments are in order, improving the technique of them, because in the first instance, they were intended for low-risk prisoners. But now, with the courts granting bail for murder and other serious offenses, the courts are ordering that they be electronically monitored. So I want Dr. Munilal and the country to know the system is working and working so well that recently we had 2 incidents where people wearing the bracelets went to commit robbery or crime. And it is the fact of the bracelets that led the police straight to them. That happened in your country. Let's tell you how brazen it has become. So we are working to try to improve, do what we can do. In terms of the community, the police would have announced a reward. I am told by the police it's $100,000 to encourage persons who have any information leading to the arrest, prosecution, charge of persons involved in that affair in Gonzales to come forward and assist the police. There are many people in our communities who, apart from giving assistance to the police, they give assistance to the criminals, because the minute they see a policeman or a police car, they call and say 36. They call and say police in town. The same community. And this is why I argued some time ago, a lot that is happening cannot happen without the support and the acquiescence or the fear and trembling and turning a blind eye. I do understand the importance of protecting oneself and the fear that exists in citizens. But I can tell you, we should never allow our enemies to cause us to cringe in fear. It is that fear that immobilizes us and gives him even a greater hand. And before long, he'll come and tell you, well, I want your house. Get out. And your fear will cause you to just walk away from your hard work and your lifelong ownership and possession, earning ownership and possession. So we have to come together as a society, work with law enforcement, all law-abiding people, all the institutions of the state, up our game, improve the criminal justice system. And it is those things, rather than a magic wand, that will resolve the problems of crime that as they beset us. And I want to say to you in closing, before I allow you to ask the questions that you have come ready to ask, I told you at a press conference recently, there are persons who are quite adept at experts in the business of law who make themselves large in avoiding standing lawfully as it might be, constitutionally as they are entitled, in interfering with the state's attempts to deal with crime and criminality. I'll give you an example. Some time ago, the Financial Intelligence Unit attempted to get access, an institution established under law, attempted to get access into 2 financial accounts of 2 persons of interest to it, the Financial Intelligence Unit. And when they began that work, the individuals affected ran to the court and complained on a couple grounds. One of which is that the FIU law, the section under which the FIU acted, was unconstitutional. And also that the FIU could not initiate this process. This could only come from a suspicious transaction which would be flagged by a bank to the FIU or some financial house. So the law was used, one may say, because of those loopholes, to thwart the attempt of the state to get inside of what it had an interest in through the FIU. And that is not the only example. The very death penalty. Many people in Trinidad and Tobago say, bring back the death penalty, bring it back. Every time the state tried or tries to carry out the death penalty, those bright lawyers, using the very constitution, make an attack in the court. And the court has a practice, a principle, that it will not, and it cannot actually, as a lawyer I can say that, shut its doors to persons who come on constitutional grounds before it. And then they go, they may win at first instance or lose, and then they appeal, and then it goes to the Privy Council, and then a judicial review action comes after that about some aspect of it, and then that goes to the Court of Appeal and the Privy Council, and when that is finished, they find another ground. And it's so the story goes. The airport case, which is almost 30 years old, 28 years old now, is a perfect example of people with deep pockets who would have done this using the very constitution that we all are obliged to live by. So what they are doing, whatever the law we pass in the parliament, they use a provision in the Constitution, section 13 of the Constitution, and let me read for you, members of the media, what this says. And I'm only doing all of this to explain to you because I'm asked, what are you doing about these murders? What are you doing? So I'm here telling you some of the things we are doing. And I'm telling you, it is no light switch or magic wand, because it is not a smooth road. The brilliant lawyers and the brilliant business owners who have objection to what's going on with firearms and all kinds of things, in addition to the corrupt state officials, whether it is in the defense force, the police service, the parliament, the cabinet, as we have seen in this country happen before, and across the system in this state, is responsible for some of the problems. Recently, someone told me, and I want you to share this with you, members of the media, that an investor spoke with him about investing money in Trinidad and Tobago and didn't want to do it because of the state of crime as it's coming internationally to his attention. Didn't want to do it. And that's unfortunate for our country. Anything that is done to tarnish our reputation internationally affects every one of you. Because that investment could have created more jobs, grow the economy, but we have a problem. But the investor told my friend who shared this with me that wherever you see plenty crime, there's corruption. Plenty corruption. And it struck me as true. Not that I didn't know it before, but it resonated as I heard it again. And therefore, and the corollary is wherever there is plenty corruption, there is crime. And corruption is one of the problems that are affecting the state from dealing with criminals in the way we should. So it is no magic wand, it is no light switch. There's a whole lot to be done on an ongoing basis by all of us if we have to deal with this problem here. And you know what they will say? You're having heard me say this? And some of you will publish when they say it, that all of this is just an excuse. But I am only explaining what the reality is. Let me read for you what they used to challenge the very laws that we passed that attack criminality, including white-collar criminality. And any restrictions to bail that we might have tried to put in place. Section 13 of your Constitution, members of the media, says, an act to which this section applies may expressly declare that it shall have effect even though inconsistent with sections 4 and 5. Pause. Sections 4 and 5 of the Constitution are the enshrined rights, right to liberty, freedom of the press, freedom of expression, freedom of worship, and all of those things. And in 5 matters about bail and matters about the right to be heard and an attorney at law to represent you, other rights. But sections 4 and 5 are the rights in the Constitution. And this is saying an act to which this section applies may expressly declare that it shall have effect. So the law must say so when we write it in the Parliament, even though inconsistent with sections 4 and 5. If any, and I continue, if any such act does so declare, it shall have effect accordingly unless the act is shown to be reasonably justifiable in a society that has a proper respect for the rights and freedoms of the individual. Ladies and gentlemen, see that section 13? It gives rise to a whole heap, general as it is, a whole heap of challenges against the whole law the other day. I used the Police Service Act on the advice of the Cabinet to extend the service of the Commissioner of Police by 1 year as the law provides. One of the hotshot lawyers in this country took that using a man of straw, a certain Ravi Balgobin, Maraj, to go to court to challenge that law and the section under which it was done as being inconsistent with section 13. And the matter went to court. Fortunately, the court found in favor of the state. But there are times when it doesn't. I'm just saying, they use this and it goes all the way to the Privy Council and back and again and back and again, and this is happening. So it is for all of us in Trinidad and Tobago. I said a few days ago, with all of our laws, with all of our good intentions, with all that we have done or not done, it appears today we have created a situation where the criminals seem to have the advantage over the criminal justice system. They now display that they have no fear of it, no respect for it, and they just do what they want, and the society appears to be lawless. And I am called upon to give an account for that. So today I am here proudly to give an account. With that said, members of the media, I make myself available to take any questions that you may have in these regards. I thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister. I'm Samaru, Guardian Media.
Thank you very much, Mr. Samaru.
Something you said at the end that kind of caught my attention with respect to the death penalty. I want to ask you, as Minister of National Security, are you in support of that death penalty? Would you like to see these murderers and people sentenced to death, hanged for their crimes?
I would love to see justice. And that means I have faith in the courts of Trinidad and Tobago and the law. And I would like to see it applied to protect all of us from the criminals and the criminality and the selfishness and the greed and the bullying that reflects itself in murders and rape and kidnapping and extortion I support the law. And as it now stands, the law of the land includes the application of the death penalty, and until that changes, I'm a supporter.
With respect to, there was a joint select committee who spoke about the availability of guns coming into the country. There was a report from a JSC in March recommending the creation of a border protection agency to strengthen that detection of firearms coming in, taking it away from customs. Where are we with that?
Yeah, that matter is under, of course, contemplation. It's a major shift from what we now have, and therefore that matter is under the consideration of the government. And I can tell you that apart from that in particular, we have had a view. In fact, we relate to agencies from the United States. They had a similar kind of system to the one we still have, and then they set up some joint border agencies. This agency, the Homeland Security, which put everything together, elements of law enforcement, including customs, to deal with their issues, and that is something that has gained some attention and some attraction. So the matter is under consideration as we move forward.
With respect to going after this gang culture, gang life, you would have outlined what the Ministry of Youth Development would be doing. You would have mentioned what the Ministry of Education is doing for young people.
Ministry of Sport, the Ministry of Community Development, across the Ministry of Social Development.
National Security.
Oh yeah, well we the Ministry of National Security, we have a number of youth clubs, police youth clubs. We have a number of prison youth clubs, fire service youth clubs, and they are all engaged. The Defense Force manages the youth development programs that are MyLAT and MyPart. So national security, because of the discipline of these organizations, and by the way, as I said to the nation a few days ago, you can't become a soldier in this country if you're over 25. So we employ young people. And inside of the Defense Force, there are copious opportunities for development and training, whether it is to fly plane, whether it is, all aspects of development, engineering, all kinds of things. As armies go around, Defense Forces go around the world. So that we are doing. In addition to that, we have community policing sections. And most police officers are trained in community policing skills, meaning an understanding that there are different approaches to dealing with crime and criminality and the potential for it. So I trust that that answers your question. In addition to that, we introduced the government, led by the Prime Minister, established what we now call a pool program. We put one in Laventille in my constituency, Sovereign Trace. We put one in Mova in Mr. Leonce's constituency. There's one out in La Hoqueta. I think we're putting one in Maloney as we speak. And young people are coming forward, managed by the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. They're swimmers, they're professionals, and the thing is going so powerfully. I've seen children under the age of 10 able to swim 2 lengths of a pool when they had no access to a pool all their lives. And Mova has gone a stage further. They formed themselves into a swim club, apart from the program that we are administering there. And they have joined the National Swim Club Association. So some of the youngsters from Mova and environs are now taking part in national swimming affairs. So those are some of the things that we do. In terms of the prison, just answering your question, inside of the prison for decades, we've had a tremendous amount of rehabilitation and development programs where prisoners, in fact, at one time when I was minister, and some of these programs still exist, I introduced some of the programs that we have for young people on the outside, including payment of stipends. We put them on the inside, so persons are trained on the inside. Radio broadcasting, elements of journalism, horticulture, agriculture, animal husbandry, all kinds of things are taught to people who find themselves inside of the jail, whether on remand or committed as inmates. And therefore, I've given you a better sense of what we are doing.
So why are we still hearing from young people, as you mentioned, that there aren't any opportunities for them? Is it that these opportunities are not attractive enough to lure people away from that life of quick money, easy money, that life of crime?
Well, I'm happy to tell you, in my estimation, the majority of our young people, fortunately at this time, have made use of those opportunities. But the relatively few who have not. They are the ones who get a lot of play in the media. I went to a function maybe about 3 weeks ago where the credit union, the youth of the credit union, taking up positions on the board and design some youth programs. This was the name of the credit union. This is Amalgamated Workers. It is run by them. I can't remember the exact name now. The credit union what's the name of it? Amalgamated Workers Credit Union. And the young people playing a critical role. They had a competition. They had a debate, almost parliamentary style, about a crime plan. So they invited me as Minister of National Security. And I must tell you truthfully, Akash, I sat there, I listened intently, not only to their diction and to the swiftness of their brains. I was very impressed. But the plan itself, I found to be very thoughtfully put together. I was very impressed. The media was there, but up to 2 days ago, one of them told me they saw absolutely no coverage of it. So there are a tremendous amount of good and positive things, but because of the culture of our country, which the media partly reflects, it doesn't always get the airplay and the attention that it should. And that, I hope, answers your questions. There is so much good happening with our young people, but it is the noisy, unfortunate circumstances that gets most of attention. So one of the things that people ask for is that the media be a little more selective. I don't ask for that because I accept the media as the fourth estate and the media will do what it must. But I've heard people ask that the media be a little more mindful and promote the good so that it would not seem as though it is dominated by the bad.
The media reflects reality. My final question before I pass on the mic. Basically, all these initiatives that you've called out there, on the other hand, we have these international vloggers or YouTubers visiting certain parts of Trinidad and Tobago, seemingly highlighting, some would say glorifying, that gang and criminal life. You would have mentioned investors being turned off from Trinidad and Tobago. Are you concerned about...
I mentioned an investor.
An investor, there may be more.
Okay.
Are you concerned?
You see how the media can just slip down?
I'm sure if there's one there are others.
Well, you can be sure. I spoke of one that I heard about. Okay?
Are you concerned about what this is doing to this country's international reputation and somewhat encouraging others to follow suit in the country?
I am absolutely concerned about that, as I alluded to earlier, because I have been an officer of the state now for over 40 years. I started out as a police officer, been a member of parliament for many, many years, and a minister of government, and I'm mindful of the responsibility on my part, and also as a man, as a person, as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, who love this country like you do, to do whatever I can to promote it. So whether I'm home or abroad, it's about promoting the good and the beauty that is Trinidad and Tobago. And there's a lot to be said good for us. So I am concerned when people act in ways or do anything or say anything to the detriment of the reputation of the nation. And as a minister of government, I know what that means in a direct way because I interface with some of our international partners. For example, Trinidad and Tobago earned itself an international reputation as being a major exporter of foreign terrorist fighters during the time and the heyday of ISIS. That's a reputation that we earned. And it went and continues to go a very long way. It affects every one of you in very direct ways. So, the answer to your question is yes, I'm very concerned.
Is it tantamount to sedition?
That's a matter for the DPP and the police. While I'm a lawyer by profession, I am here as a minister of government, and that is above my own pay grade. In addition to that, the matter is sub judice, and I want to know why would you invite me to act irresponsibly and comment upon that matter? Would you answer that? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Jerry Bartlett from Newsday.
Yes, sir.
Earlier this year,
the Prime Minister spoke about investing $100 million into the army to go into communities to help fight crime. Do you have an update on that? Oh yes, very happily. Well, based on the outline of the Prime Minister on that occasion, the Prime Minister put a team, an interministerial team together. It has come together, it has been meeting, and arrangements are made, and we are well on the way to implementing that. I give you that assurance. Up to yesterday, we had an engagement on this matter, and we are well on the way to its implementation. With respect to the Commissioner now, I know how contract the Commissioner is not on a contract. The Commissioner's service was extended by 1 year as the law permits it to be. As you know, the law permits that, and the advice of the Cabinet, the President acts accordingly. So she's not on contract. She is a First Division Officer of the Police Service, and by virtue of that, her service was extended beyond the age of 60, and the law says it can be extended for 3 years, 1 year at a time. So she's now on her second year in this regard. Thanks for that clarification. Yes, indeed. Has she proposed a new crime plan or any new initiatives to fight crime? The Commissioner's strategic plan and crime plans, from that which I know based on my communication with her and her executive, is an ever-evolving and growing and organic issue. So the answer to your question is obviously yes, because constant daily reviews, the police executive and the First Division officers meet regularly, review where they are, what are the circumstances, which areas emerge as the hotspots, which issues emerge. That's what I am told. And in fact, I attended one of those meetings a long time ago, not under this Commissioner. So I have an idea what they do and how they re-strategize almost on a daily basis, because I told you it's no magic wand, it's no light switch. When the criminals become aware that the police are coming at them in one way, they move. So it's a work in progress, and the answer to your question is yes. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Hinds. Cabinet recently gave the go-ahead to constitutional reform consultations.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Right. So Cabinet recently gave the go-ahead for constitutional reform consultations. So it's like in the pre-consultation stage. And I guess it really balances rights of an individual versus the rights of the collective. One possible law that may reflect that might be the sedition law. We want to know how, if Cabinet would welcome a review of the Sedition Act, because I was actually flicking through it, and it has references to Soviet Union and Czechoslovakia right at the very end, which no longer exists. So clearly it needs a tidying up if it's like the typographical and it may be an opportunity for an actual wholesale look at the whole thing. Well, for example, one instance would be, would you want to have a public interest defense when these cases arise? I mean, one could say that the DPP is guardian of the public interest. I mean, that has to be a consideration as cases may occur, but legislatively you may actually want to insert a public interest provision. You may want to have a doctrine of necessity, freedom of the press. I'm not really an attorney, but these sort of ideas. So the question really would be, how is Cabinet keeping abreast of the need to review these various laws where we want to balance the rights of the collective and the individual? And yeah, I think that would sum it up. Thank you.
As I understand you to have asked initially, would Cabinet do X or Y? While I am a member of the Cabinet, I am not the Cabinet. The Cabinet meets as it's necessary, the Cabinet deliberates, and on the principle of collective responsibility, we come up with positions by which we are all guided as a mandate through. implementation and so on. So I am unable to say what cabinet would do. More generally, laws are always under review. The Attorney General is the advisor, the legal advisor to the cabinet. And I can tell you the Attorney General is forever looking at laws. As we speak now, committees are meeting different aspects of the law, constantly reviewing the law. So in that general sense, the answer is yes. Because laws are here for, as Lord Denning once said, laws were made for man, for the use of man, not man to be used by the law. And laws must develop organically as well to meet societal trends. I mean, even the Bible speaks that wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. At that time, they didn't have cocaine, and they didn't have all them funny tablets around the place that sending our children mad. So if they had existed, I am sure that those who wrote the Bible would have included them in the submission, in the verse. But because it did not exist, it's still, to me, when the Bible says, wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging, I include in that all the hallucinatory stuff that is poisoning our children, fentanyl and cocaine of all description and creepy marijuana, where they affect the THCs in it and push that to 80 and 90%. So when the youngster think it's just some little herb in the backyard there, and they smoke it, hit him, send them all kinds of harm. And talking about that, members of the public have raised with me recently, for example, young people in communities in this country have said to me personally within recent times that pills are very available in the little parties and little places around the place. There are all kinds of pills. Drugs, sending the little children mad. Some of these drugs, like fentanyl, made zombies of them. I saw recently in the United States, some journalist went to some fentanyl block and said that she could not determine who was alive or dead. They were just there for hours in the same position. And we are trying to protect Trinidad and Tobago from a lot of that. This is the reason why we are taking action to improve our border security. This is the reason why we're taking action to root out of our ranks persons who demonstrate criminal tendencies. This is why we have to watch those who we elect in this country, because countries in this world have had criminals in government. We have had criminals in all professions, including the law in this country. And they make their voices loud and to be heard and use their legal prowess, but the spirit might not be as wholesome as it ought to be. So we have to be sober and watchful and be careful of what we ask for. And I might say politically who we vote for. Because it's the protection of the people that we seek. And the wolves are knocking at the door. Thank you.
So there would be public concern from people of respect with regard to their safety, especially at the Port of Spain General Hospital. And I'm glad you mentioned it was an isolated incident, the quadruple killing, the shooting there. We had the prison break in 2015 and what happened in there. And also in 2013, an employee of the NWRHA was shot in the face. She sued the NWRHA for negligence, and coming out of that case, there was a security report that recommended armed personnel, armed security, inclusive of stronger security protocols like metal detectors and things like that. Are you aware if those things were ever implemented?
I am unable to say, but I can check on that. I mean, I already am not personally aware of that. The business of the state security absorbs all of my time and my attention, and of course security is important everywhere, but in terms of what they have done specifically in that regard, I can't now tell you, but I can find out and revisit this matter again in the future. Be happy to do that.
And with respect to the fears about going to Port of Spain General right now?
Well, I can understand that people would be traumatized, and the Minister of Health yesterday had a quiet conversation with me indicating that yes, quite justifiably members of staff expressed deep concerns about what transpired. And I am aware that a review of the security systems around there is also underway. But you see, as I said, this car apparently followed the victims of the attack in Gonzales sufficiently closely so that as soon as it got into the hospital and was approaching the ramp outside of the wards, you know the ramp I'm talking about when you go on the southern side of the building, they launched a second attack. So it means they were really determined criminals. And this is why I'm happy to know that the police are now gathering all the evidence that they could and in pursuit of these assailants. It will be very gratifying to know they get their hands on them, and triply gratifying if they get those guns. I'm just hoping that they do. And I'm calling on the community in light of the reward of $100,000 to assist quietly. There are persons who you can trust and who you can share, and the state will treat the thing confidentially. And I'm encouraging the citizens, even for your own sakes, you may save a life if you did that. And the life you save may just be your own. It appears as though the matters that we have traversed today have been treated with the media's satisfaction. All that is left for me to do is to very sincerely thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for your attendance, and look forward to engaging with you at some time in the foreseeable future so that we could continue to share through you with the public the facts and circumstances, in my case particularly around crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago, for which I have responsibility and from which I will not shirk. Thank you very much.